session was held prior to the work session to discuss personnel items. And this is now the work session. Anybody from the board have any questions on either the board information A or number 2? Board information and direction to be given, or to review the regular March meeting agenda excluding personnel. Anybody, nobody? Okay.
Yeah, I have a few questions. Anthony, on number 8 for the bid for Northeast data, would you be able to present us with something for that?
Which one?
For the cabling, the schools.
Oh, that one, well, our current equipment is end of life. And it was spec'd 6 years ago when we didn't have all the extra Chromebooks and all the extra devices that we're adding on, like security cameras, HVAC systems. Like, we're putting a lot more burden on the network, and this, that bid that I put out would, have that capacity for all those extra devices and future proof us for the next 5 to 6 years, because that's pretty much the standard refresh cycle for IT equipment.
It's basically just another upgrade for us then.
Correct, yes.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Anyone else?
That's okay.
Yes. Thank you, Dave.
Dave,
And in that case,
got a question down
oh,
here.
I'm so sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry. Under information and direction to be given, and number 2 part, number 5, to approve immediate assignment of middle school resource officer. I just have a few questions.
Go ahead.
First of all, maybe Paul, I could direct it to you. How do we propose to pay for this?
Well, I provided this afternoon, Mr. Majer, a spreadsheet that I'll gladly give to you. It's on your school email.
Well, this must have been later this afternoon. Right?
I sent that out this afternoon to all board members. I've actually had a call or 2 from some other board members on this. And if you look at the bottom portion of this sheet, we were told by district administration that cafeteria funds can be used to offset the cost of the SRO. The solicitor incorporated language into the proposed agreement that's up for board consideration this evening. And by doing so, as is with the agreements, by putting an SRO in the middle school, and this is without a Curly in the middle school, and keeping Curly at every other building, you'll see that the numbers work out to $9,000 less for 2022, 2023, and then they grow incrementally from there.
Okay, I agree with that, but I was also talked to Aramark, and Aramark told me that the resource officer could be charged for 40% of his time spent in the cafeteria.
Can I direct you, Mr. Majer, to section B, number 5 of the agreement, and I'll read it as such. This was included by the solicitor this afternoon into this agreement. The SRO shall make every effort possible to dedicate 50% of his or her time to cafeteria duties, which include but are not limited to cafeteria monitoring during lunch periods, perimeter monitoring of ingress and egress points to the cafeteria during lunch periods, and ensuring the safe and expeditious arrival and departure of students to and from the cafeteria to
Okay,
comply exactly to what you're questioning.
I received that email. Thank you. But the question I have is, are we guaranteed 40% of that each?
When I spoke with Mrs. Troy, because it was the day that I was off from work a few weeks ago, and the email that Mrs. Troy sent out to me, that was a a source of revenue that can be carried forward for each year.
Okay, now that's what I mean, I wasn't told that when I spoke with Jen from Aramark, and I spoke with her at length, that we could recoup up to 40%. And then I asked her if it would be guaranteed for the next 4 or 5 years. And she says that they could not guarantee anything. It has to be renegotiated every year.
But the money the pot of money has been consistent in the 80 to 85,000 range. I believe the number Mrs. Troy sent to me was $82,000. This is 35 of that 82. So I don't think that we're going to be jeopardizing all of the, there's, let's put it this way, there's significant room margin between 82 and 35. I think that we're fine in doing this.
Okay, and another question I have is, why are we doing 5 years? I mean, we do 2 years with Curly and a year each with Clarksville and Plymouth. And at the point we're at, and I think we just discussed it this evening, that with what's going on with our finances, and right now we don't know where we stand with finances. I think we talked about it this evening as far as negotiating the contracts and all. We put them on hold and everything. And I'm just wondering why we have to do a 5-year contract tonight for this. Can we? I'm not opposed to it, but
it's a 4-year.
well, 4-year even, but I mean, we're making it a commitment for 4 years. And we really don't know where we stand financially, as we all talked about today, I think in our executive session. And it just doesn't make any sense. I'm not opposed to it. I mean, I'm all for it if we do it like a year or 2 years, like we do it. But 4 years to me, and we don't know where we are financially.
But the numbers, Mr. Majer, that are in front of you going out to 2025, there's a risk as long as the person has single benefits of $7,700. And I asked, what knowing what we know about this middle school right now, what price are you putting on safety?
I'm not putting a price on safety. I'm just saying that what we talked about financially, we don't have the finances to do anything. In fact, we talked about putting this aside, that aside, until we have audits, we find out where our money's at, and then we go ahead. I have no objection with this.
Because we also need time. We can't hire an SRO overnight. So we need the approval from the board to implement this plan as soon as possible, to give time to have this person scheduled to be in this building for the beginning of the new school year after July 1st of 2022.
I don't see the reason for it, but I'll agree with you there. But the bottom line is, do we know that this person, as far as their health benefits and all, it's going to be singular and they're going to have the same every year? Are we going to hold them to that? Does it say anything in the contract?
That is something by the collective bargaining unit. We cannot control. However, the list that we're using right now, the person that we're trying to offer something to, if this goes through, will be a single benefit candidate.
All right, I guess with that, it answers my questions, but I don't totally agree with it. I think we're getting a little far ahead on this, where we should be looking at a year or two until we find out where we're financially. And again, I'm not opposed to it. It's just these questions, I think need to be answered.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
All I was going to do is echo Mr. Keating and some of the folks that live in my region who approached me. I don't see where there can be any delay in trying to get a school resource officer additional here. And while I understand your concerns, Mr. Majer, I don't see this as a short-term need. The way, if you pick up the newspaper today and the things going on, I'd be happy if it was only a 2-year need, but the reality is it's probably a 3, 4, 5, 10-year need. And if we can lock in some of this and have it as a known, these costs going forward, it probably will help us in future years in budgeting because we know the expense that we're going to be putting into this. So I kind of look at it the other way. The 5-year agreement helps us to know our costs going 5 years from now for something that we all, I believe, think is vital, not
Well,
only today, but for the future.
I'm sure then we better be prepared because I believe Larksville's and Plymouth's contract run out at the end of this school term and they'll be looking for new contracts. And I'm sure when they see this, they're gonna be looking for the same thing.
And I know, Mr. Majer, I'd be the first to say that for Larksville and Plymouth, that to support the status quo, to continue their SRO in a school for a 4-year period, I would gladly vote on that because it's the right thing to do for the faculty and the kids.
Well, as long as we're prepared financially, I don't care. I'm all for it too. I think in fact, I think we should have 2, but if we can afford it, that's the bottom line. I mean, a few short months ago, we were down here in the audience telling me about spending money that I didn't have. And I think we're spending money right now we don't have. It's not budgeted and we're talking about it. We have other towns that are going to come for the same thing. And it's definitely going to cost us money in the end. And it's not going to be a little money. We're talking about maybe a couple $100,000 between the 3 or 4 of them, counting Curly Agency. So
Again,
just-
just please refer to your spreadsheet and you'll see what it's costing you.
I did refer to it, but again, like I said, Plymouth and Larksville is going to come with the same thing. And I don't know where we're going to go with that, but I just wanted to bring it to the board's attention that it's not going to be cheap.
Any other
Thank you.
questions?
I would just like to add, Dave, that, for $53,000 a year to have the full force of the KPD here, the amazing response that they have given to us so far this year, and the health, safety, and welfare of our teachers, students, and everybody in our facilities, I think it's a small price to pay.
53,000 a year is fine if you go by the year, but if you go for 4 years on it and all of a sudden you're up to $80,000 a year. So it's not just $53,000 a year.
All right, anybody else? None? Let's move on to the regular meeting. This is call the meeting to order and this roll call, please.
Mrs. Cassatt? Here. Mr. Damascus?
Here.
Mr. Hardwick?
Here.
Mr. Camus?
Here.
Mr. Keating?
Here.
Mr. Majer?
Here.
Mr. Perfetto?
Here.
Mr. Pazinski?
Here.
Mr. Youssef?
Here. Would you please stand for a moment of silence followed by the salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, before we approve the minutes from the last meeting, Ben Bowen is the only student representative here. Ben, would you mind giving us a report?
A little closer to you, maybe.
Talk to me. Go ahead.
The Wyoming Valley West.
Here. You just come sit in my seat, bud.
Sit by your favorite.
Ms. Cassatt. The Wyoming Valley West High School administration is proud to announce the Spartan Spotlight recipients for the month of February. The seniors selected exemplify honorable virtues in academics, athletics, and in their communities, beyond that of the typical student. They will receive a certificate, and their bios and accomplishments are posted on the high school website, as well as sent out to the newspapers for recognition. The following are the esteemed Spartan Spotlight selections: Grayson Calderon, Tony Schusta, Trinity Johnson, and Kaylin Wone Pastor. Congratulations to seniors Logan Romanowski and Brandy Varner. on being selected to the Citizens Voice Scholastic Superstars Class of 2022. They are among a 25-member class chosen by a panel of judges from local universities and colleges for their excellence in and out of the classroom. They are among the best of this year's graduating class and will be featured and honored in the paper and by a banquet at the Kirby Center. The high school would like to recognize the wrestlers and swimmers who have recently medaled at their respective district championships. The wrestlers are as follows: Joe Rivas, Ian Ratchford, Mason Scarlett, Dorian Hoffman, Loudon Giza, and Johnny McLaughlin. The swimmers are Chris Hummel, Connor Uter, Sebastian Cantanzero, Rio Bentel, and Benjamin Bowen. Congratulations to all winter sports teams at the end of their seasons. The Black Youth in Action Club recently held an assembly at the high school for Black History Month on the morning of February 28th. The program went very well and echoed BYA's motto, excellence through diversity. Thank you to all those who spoke, and especially thank you to Mr. Groth, the Black Youth in Action Advisor. The Wyoming Valley West Gamers Club held a successful Super Smash Brothers fundraiser tournament on Saturday, March 5th. The spring musical, The Addams Family, will premiere on March 31st and April 1st and 2nd at the high school auditorium at 7 p.m. Tickets are $10 each, and all are encouraged to come and support. The high school is hosting PMEA Region 4 bands on Thursday, March 10th and Friday, March 11th. The band is made up of the best 150 high school musicians representing 50 school districts from Northeast and North Central Pennsylvania. The concert is Friday, March 11th at 7 p.m. in the Wyoming Valley West High School gym, and admission is $6. The SAT exam is offered at the Wyoming Valley West High School on Saturday, March 12th. The senior class began ordering their caps and gowns for graduation on Monday, March 7th. All orders are due by Friday, March 18th. There is a link on the high school webpage with additional directions. Senior, junior prom ticket sales are Wednesday, March 23rd to Friday, March 25th. Tickets are $60 per person or $120 per couple. Ticket sale location is in room 317 during periods 2, 6, 7, and 8. The prom is at the Woodlands on Friday, May 6th. The Interim Literary Arts Magazine is currently accepting original works of art, poetry, prose, and drama for their upcoming publication. The third marking period ends on March 30th. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes of February 9th, 2022 board meeting.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Superintendent's comments, Mr. Tosh, please.
Thank you, Mr. Savage. This Friday is an in-service day with no classes for students. On Thursday, February the 17th, the local math counts competition was held virtually. Wyoming Valley West Middle School entered 12 mathletes into competition, and 4 of them scored in the top 15 out of a total of 63 contestants. Elijah Soroka finished 4th, and Elijah is now eligible for the state competition in Hershey on March 19th. Emily Bowen finished 7th. Ariel Chu finished 14th. And Riley Castro finished in 15th place. And congratulations to all of the participants and the advisors, Mrs. Oliveira and Mrs. Fry. 2 other announcements, and I don't normally go over the announcements that I do on a Sunday night robo, but I did want to just reinforce it again because I thought it was significant. I mentioned on Sunday that for the 13th year, we had district students in grades 8 through 11 participate in the regional meeting of the Pennsylvania Junior Academy of Science. They earned 9 first place awards with 3 perfect scores and 1 second award. Congratulations to all the students who received awards or participated. And I've said to principals in the past, and I said it when I was the principal. Whether you received the award or you're participating, that's the main thing, that you're getting out there and you're trying. Thank you to advisor Mrs. Kanapke. And I'd also like to congratulate again the Spartan Ice Hockey varsity team on winning the Northeast Pennsylvania Hockey League Championship recently as they defeated Wilkes-Barre 6-4. They came all the way back from a 4th seed to win the title, which is no easy feat. Congratulations again to all team members that participated and coaches. Two final little pieces of information that I did want to share tonight. I believe at our last meeting, one or two of the parents had asked me some questions during the question and answer period where the public had spoke. One of the ladies had expressed a concern about students that were leaving, getting off school property here at the middle school and maybe getting into some scuffles up on an alley or being off school property. And she asked, is there anything that we could do about that? I followed up the next day with Chief Rich Kotchik of the Kingston Police the next day. And since then, he's had 3 police cruisers in the vicinity. So I think the Kingston Police at our request did a great job. I don't know, is Chief, are you here? Chief Kotchik's in the back. I do want to thank you, Chief, for your cooperation. We've always got great cooperation from him. And one of the other parents had mentioned that in the event, I guess there was one day where the crossing guard wasn't there. And the woman had said, can we make any arrangements if a crossing guard isn't available? I had said at the time, I'm going to come over the next day and talk to the middle school to see if we could make arrangements. Before I came over, I placed a call again to Chief Kotchik, and as he always does, he stepped to the plate. And I believe, Chief, and correct me if I'm wrong, since then, the guard only missed one day, and it was this week. And Chief took the parking enforcement officer, put him out front. So again, our hats off to you, Chief, for thank you for everything you're doing to ensure the kids' safety here at the middle school. Finally, if you look at tonight's agenda, under agenda number 5, you can see accept the resignation due to retirement, Joanne Woods, School Board Secretary, Secretary to the Superintendent. And I guess I should take one more shot at this point to see if we can talk her out of it. But Mrs. Wood, I have to say, Mrs. Wood has served 4 superintendents. When I was over here at the middle school, she worked here. I can't thank her enough for her professionalism, her loyalty, her experience. And I can tell you, as a first-year superintendent last year, when I was getting inundated with Google Classroom, asynchronous, synchronous, hybrid, Chromebooks, masks, there were days I felt like a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. And Mrs. Wood was so cool, calm, and collected, and kind of took the attitude that, God rest my mother's soul, she used to say to me, this too shall pass. And as we've gotten to the point where we have a meeting without masks, and hopefully we've turned the corner with it, I just want to thank Mrs. Wood personally for everything she's done with this district and wish her health, happiness, and a happy retirement. Thank you very much. But you have to come to work tomorrow. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Savage.
Statements from interested citizens. Citizens addressing the board are asked to state their name and town of residence in accordance with board policy number 903. There's a copy available if you would like to see it. Statements are limited to 3 minutes.
Good evening, Wyoming Valley West School District administrators, teachers, and community members. My name is James Baldwin. I'm from West Wyoming, and I have a child in the school district. Tonight, I just have a couple short things. One is just a request from the board with regards to the meeting minutes. Is it possible that moving forward, you can publicly post the public comments with the meeting minutes online, or basically right now you do post the minutes online. I know you're not required to under the sunshine law, but is that something that you can do since you already produced them, you just don't post them? It's to my knowledge, most, if not all of the local school districts do post that for transparency.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may, so there has been negotiations or talks about us just posting our Zoom meeting on our website.
Is that what you're
Which
asking
would
for?
I
Mr.
was
Ball?
asking, like, the meeting minutes, like, you take minutes of public comments, correct? And you create those and you have those for the record, correct?
No, we are not required to by sunshine law to do that. We note the public comment, but we do not take actual minutes of it.
Okay, that's what I said. You actually do take notes of them, though.
There's just a notation of it. There's no actual notes or conversations. That's what I was referring to at our meeting last month.
Is that because of the changes because of COVID-19? Because it was my understanding, I could be wrong, but it was my understanding that because of COVID-19, there was changes and it was allowed to create the video copies and you could have that in lieu of writing those.
Mr. Anderson, would you please?
So I don't know what you were referring to, Mr. Baldwin, but with regard to the public comments, the notation that public comments occurs is the requirement, not the actual notes of what those public comments are, because the board's not voting to approve an action, right? The board is simply noting what has happened. So we don't have to take what you're talking about, full notes of what you speak about or what others come forward and put forward and address to the board. They just have to note that a public comment period occurred and that public comments occurred. If you're asking for something more like a record of what you raised to the board has discussed recently taking the Zoom video that's being going on right now and posting that so that people can see that and look back if that's see that and look back at that.
Okay, again, it was my understanding that you had to just have a gist of what the public had raised. Obviously, you don't have to create the type of minutes that you do for the regular minute, but again, I don't know for sure. I'm just presenting that to you. It was my understanding that you already did that. If you don't, then obviously, we'll move forward. What you guys are talking about. I appreciate that. The next thing was a question regarding the Chromebooks that have been issued to all the students. And again, this is just for my own information. I think the public want to know as well. But what is the long-term goal of the Chromebooks? I know they were issued during, COVID-19, the pandemic, but is there a long-term goal for having the Chromebooks issued to all the students?
Mr. Waskevich is our technology director here, and he's been really proactive in kind of giving us a vision on where we're moving to with it after we've talked to them as a curriculum committee. And we'd like to keep dropping them down into each grade level. I'm always a little bit careful about, having a kindergarten child on a Chromebook when I think, they need the dexterity to learn A, B, C's, that type of thing. But the Chromebooks have served as a great resource so that we don't have to go purchasing with large amounts of money books. So they've been a great resource with it, but we will sit down at the end of the year, as we always do, from a technology standpoint and make a decision on what direction we're going with them. But so far, they've been a great resource.
Okay, I appreciate that, Mr. Tosh. And that was kind of one of the issues that I kind of wanted to raise is if we're moving towards more digital textbooks, is everyone aware that humans tend to retain less information from digital means as opposed to physical paper books? And it's to my knowledge, I know a lot of textbook manufacturers are trying to move away from textbooks and actual book, like instead of printing the books because it's cheaper for them, better profits for them. But if it's at the expense of the learning and the ability for our children to actually retain information, is it worth it? I think that's something that I asked the board to take some time to just research on your own and look into that. But there was a study that was published in the journal Frontiers in Behavioral Neuroscience in March of 2021. And they addressed just the fact of taking notes on a computer as opposed to writing those notes can make a significant difference. And I'm gonna leave it with you guys so you can take a look at it. But just a short excerpt. This is just a conclusion from the experiment, and a quote, our present experiments demonstrated that brain activations related to memory, visual imagery, and language during the retrieval of specific information, as well as deeper encoding of that information, were stronger in participants using a paper notebook than in those using electronic devices. Our results suggest that the use of paper notebook affects those higher order brain functions, and this could have important implications for education, particularly in terms of the pros and cons of e-learning. The expanded use of mobile devices and computers could undercut the use of traditional textbooks and paper notebooks, which may in fact provide richer information from the perspective of memory encoding. Further research is needed to elucidate the actual changes in brain activation due to long-term exposure to mobile devices. But again, there's quite a bit of research that's been done on this over the years. It's been looked at a lot, that we don't retain as much information from digital means as we do from paper ones. And I know, again, that if we're looking at the cost, I mean, the books, the paper books, there's value in that, and it actually affects our learning. And I know the PSSA scores were not very good this year, and obviously that the pandemic played a role in that, but I think that's something that we want to look at. We don't want to move completely to digital when there's immense value in the paper books and just the ability that we learn. That's just the way that humans learn, and maybe in the future that will start to change, but I want to make sure that everybody is aware of that and can look into that and not completely move towards a digital way of learning when there's immense value in having those paper books, or even just taking notes.
I'm sorry. I can assure you, we're not moving to Chromebooks being the sole measure of academics. I know a lot of teachers use them as a resource. They'll deliver their lesson plan for a 35-minute period, and then maybe refer to doing work on the Chromebook related to the lesson plan. But it's certainly not something that we're pushing with teachers to say, use that Chromebook for the entire period. We're going to try and balance the financial aspect with the learning aspect. But, you know, good teaching is still good teaching, where teachers go up and deliver a lesson plan. And I'm comfortable, I'm confident that our teachers are doing that. But again, I'm glad you brought it up, and that's a conversation obviously we'll have as we move forward here at the end of the year and start planning for the fall.
Right. I appreciate that, Mr. Tashin. Again, it's just something I want to raise with the board, and hopefully you guys can look into a little more, because obviously when you're purchasing textbooks either digitally or paper, obviously I think that's something that we should consider, especially if it's a small difference in price. I think we may want to just stick to the books, which obviously we'll have for years too. So just something to take a look at. I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you.
Is there anybody else?
Desiree Edwards, Swearsville. First and foremost, I would like to thank you for bringing a police officer on board into the school on a daily basis. It is daily basis, right?
Yes.
Okay. It's a crime that we even have gotten to this point to try to stop threats, violence, and attacks on our children. I don't know what it's come to. Next, have the metal detectors, are they used on a daily basis?
No, we don't use them on a daily basis. We do them randomly, periodically during the course of the school year. There are some issues with manpower being able to use them consistently daily, but that's another conversation we're also having as we go through the planning process.
Okay. Is there, so there's no specific people that are in charge of the metal detectors?
It's kind of all hands on deck. Our teachers help out tremendously. Our custodial staff, they help out also. So they're the ones, and moving forward, we'll be looking at some other potential resources as far as working on the metal detectors.
I just think that you spend so much money on them. I mean, and in today's day and age and with what's going on, with all the violence and everything, I think, I mean, it's not like you have to purchase them. You
Right.
already have them, and they should be utilized to their fullest extent.
I agree with you. And it's a conversation that's ongoing.
Oh, let me see. I thank you for being candor with me, like honest about the metal detectors.
And thank you for your concern.
I'm a little distraught to know that they aren't used on a daily basis. Not only for our children's safety, but for the staff safety also. We've seen so many shootings at schools and stuff. It just, and I've heard about the incidents that have been taking place here. I mean, I'm just concerned about everybody's safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm Stephanie Orfanella, I'm from Kingston. Just asking a question, really, information. I see all the sports teams and the head coaches, and I'm aware, because my daughter is on the volleyball team for the girls, that they don't have an assistant coach. And I wondered how that gets determined and if it's possible to look into an assistant coach. I'm not sure how many guys are participating in the men's program, but for the women, there's 30 students between 9th grade and 12th. And I know the coach has expressed, the coach that has since resigned expressed burnout. My daughter has expressed that there'll be practice happening and there's just coaching of the varsity girls, but the JV don't have any guidance. Sometimes he's had some students that have graduated help him out, but he's not able to pay them. So I just wanted to ask how to go about advocating for an assistant volleyball coach.
Yes, ma'am.
Paid.
I talked to our athletic director, Nick Gill, about it, and there's definitely been an increase in the participation from the ladies versus the men's side. And I think we'll definitely look into that, the possibility of adding the system. Right now, the men's only, or the boys only have, he said like 10 to 12 players, and they only play varsity games, so there are no JV. Whereas on the girls' side, they do have JV and even freshmen. So I think there is a definite need, and we'll, unfortunately, the season's over, however we look at, but I think we'll look at it for the start of next season to possibly add someone to that.
Good, I was hoping that it wasn't too late because I know there's budgeting and all, so.
Well, yeah, on budgeting wise, it's I think the assistant coach is maybe $2,500, so we could probably find that somewhere, maybe.
Actually, the head coach is only getting about $2,700, so it'll be nice to have an assistant.
Yeah, we will definitely look at those numbers, and I'll work with our athletic director to do that.
Thank you very much for your time. Thanks.
Thank you.
Can you advocate for volunteers? Brian, can you advocate for volunteers?
They could always have volunteers. The coach could, if the coach knows someone's a volunteer and not paying, they could always do that. They just have to get their clearances and all that.
Right, okay.
Good evening, Amy Carosa from 44. I just want to also say that I was super relieved, so thank you, to see that an immediate assignment of a middle school resource officer was on the agenda tonight. But I have to ask if this is even going to be enough. I have a middle school daughter, and I have heard from her and several of her friends that they are actually too scared to go to the bathroom all day because they don't want to walk into a fight. And I know of teachers that are scared to go into the hallway between classes. Students just recently have witnessed teachers having to get involved in breaking up fights, administrators getting punched, the school nurse getting knocked down, other students being body slammed into lockers. And I've had lengthy multiple conversations with Kingston Police Chief Kochek concerning the increase in violence, particularly in the middle school this year. This week, 4 police officers spent several hours at the middle school just on Monday. This school year alone in the middle school, the Kingston police have responded to over 100 incidents involving mainly disorderly conduct, fighting, assault, and the police, of course, were called for theft and drugs as well. But what they're called for most is disorderly conduct, fighting, and assault. The school has metal detectors, but it does seem to be that they're mainly used for school board meetings and around, like Halloween, or if a direct threat has been identified. I believe that additional metal detectors were purchased recently, so I think, the question is, why aren't they used on a daily basis? I understand a little bit why after tonight, but Wilkes-Barre uses them every day, and it feels like there's really no reason at this point why Wyoming Valley West shouldn't be, because unfortunately, violence is increasing in our county. Wilkes-Barre just had a shooting in the middle of the afternoon yesterday. I don't think there are any parents that would complain about their kids having to wait in the cold if that was a reason, because everyone just wants to keep everyone safe. I think that the more kids do it, if we can come up with some type of procedure, it would get more efficient the more they had to do it. It might require hiring additional staff or rearranging staff schedules, but I think something needs to be done. I think hall monitors need to be considered to be brought back. I mean, maybe we could even get parent volunteers. I don't know, but I mean, our kids should be able to use the bathroom without being scared. And there's vaping happening in the bathrooms. Maybe, I don't know how metal detectors work, but maybe that would also alert that there's kids bringing vapes into the middle schools and high schools. Lastly, I think that most parents remember what it was like when we were in school, and any type of fight resulted in an immediate out-of-school suspension, like a week or more. And we would never have been able to tell a teacher to like F off and then return to class in the same period. And that happens in the middle school. According to the Wyoming Valley West School Discipline Policy that's on the website, it looks like assault is considered a level 4 violation at the middle and high school levels. It should result in an out-of-school suspension. But I don't know if that's the case anymore. Is it?
Absolutely, positively is the case.
Okay, that's good.
What I caution you on is the stories that come home. For example, at last meeting, we had someone make a comment about something that they thought happened. And the principal was here, so we asked that principal, and it just wasn't true. So I think you have to understand that the stories you may be hearing are exaggerated slightly. And I would guarantee that knowing the principals, knowing our staff, if someone got in a fight, that person would be out of school, that they're not here. Now, we do have issues in our judicial system that prevent us from, I don't know, prevent us, but these, if we want to, expel a student, for example, there really are no more expulsions. In 30 days, that student's coming back pretty much. It'd take a really strong act of Congress to keep them out. So we're limited by what we can do. But we absolutely positively go to the fullest extent we could do.
That's good to hear.
And you have to.
I don't think that I know that 4 police officers were here on Monday. My daughter would not lie about 4 police officers being here on one day, breaking up multiple fights.
I don't know. I know that there's some stories.
Well, Police Chief Kochek is here. We could probably even ask him. 3.5 hours on one day.
Yeah, some stories are correct. I know that, but not all.
Amy, let me say this. That day that is in question wasn't a good day. Be the first one to say it. I do, though, agree with Mr. Damascus. because I get the calls from parents a lot of times that they'll say, I heard on Facebook about this or that, or this or that, and it gets so blown out of proportion.
Oh, I believe that
And
too.
when I tell the parent, it's like, okay, now, having said that, do we want to have our high school, our middle school, and all the elementaries safer? Absolutely, absolutely. We've got to get better at it, as every school district in the area wants to get better, and we're working at it. But I do think that you have to be careful sometimes when you hear from somebody or you see something posted on Facebook that like,
But I've heard actually from teachers, and I think there was a gentleman here at the last meeting who worked at the school who he says too that kids are afraid to go into the bathrooms. I don't think somebody that works here is, you know,
Right.
going to say that otherwise. I know teachers are scared of, I mean, our students are witnessing teachers getting like knocked around by kids. That's not an exaggeration. But I mean, I understand. I just think it needs to be a priority. And I really do think that getting a police officer immediately in is a great first step. But I also think that when we're looking at a budget, if this is what we're doing right now, if you're looking at budget or ESSER money that's coming in, I think one of the very first things above everything else is the safety of the students and staff, and you will tailor your budget around that.
Amy, let me respond to it, that to tell you that agree 100% with you, that the officer is certainly a step in the right direction. I did have a long conversation with Chief Kochek yesterday and today about some potential consequences moving down the line for students that are involved in violence. And I think those consequences might be a lot different than maybe they previously were outside of school. So I think that's certainly going to be a step in the right direction.
Okay, that sounds good, because I do feel like that too many students maybe are repeat offenders, or they see that there's no harsh consequences. So until they see that the violent behavior won't be tolerated, it's not going to go away. So I appreciate hearing that. I hope that we do take it very seriously and make it a top priority. Thanks again.
I could assure you that we discuss this monthly, and this is the first step. If you spoke with Chief Kochek, you know how dedicated and passionate he is about his job.
Yeah, he's wonderful.
So you know, tonight was a big milestone for us. You know, he's going to knock it out of the box for us.
Yeah.
So
I honestly don't know if one is enough.
just takes us a little bit long, but we are working on it very hard.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, is there anybody else? Nobody? Let's continue on. General recommended action. I need a motion for items 1 through 10.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, number 5, I made a statement about finances, which I thought was my duty, but I also know and agree that we need officers in our buildings, and we'll hire as many as we can. But I feel it's my duty just to let us know where we stand financially. And with that, I am in favor of an officer at every building.
10.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman, just a quick comment on number 10. It's about the structure of the meetings. I had asked for this to be placed on the agenda. Let me start by saying time is valuable to all of us. And we're here because we care, because we want to be involved. One of the things I'm learning as we go is there's a lot on this school board's plate in so many segments of being a school board member: safety, finance, teachers, buildings and grounds, on and on and on and on. In the time that I've watched meetings prior to becoming a board member and then becoming a board member, I'd like to see us move to a little different structure where we do a work session on a different night that allows for greater discussion of topics with transparency to the public who attends, whether it's in person or virtual. And then we do our voting sessions on the third Wednesday of the month. I think we need to discuss more items and see what we can do to take on more of these topics. And again, being more transparent with the public so everybody knows and sees what's going on as part of the decision-making process. So I just wanted to explain why I think we should look at the structure of these meetings, doing them differently, allowing a bit more time. And I think it would also help not changing agendas at work sessions right before voting sessions, because we would be meeting a week prior. It gives the board, it gives the public time to look at the topics that are going to be at the voting session. And then we would be able to discuss, if needed during voting session, any of the topics further. So I just wanted to explain that and explain my thoughts behind it.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Hardwick. We have a motion and a second. Mrs.
Mrs. Cassatt,
Yes.
Mr. Damascus,
Yes.
Mr. Hardwick,
Yes.
Mr. Camus,
Yes.
Mr. Keating,
Yes.
Mr. Majer,
Yes.
Mr. Profetto,
Yeah. Yes.
Mr. Kaczynski.
Yes.
Mr. Usavich.
Yes. Move to item, or I'm sorry, staff recommended action. Resolutions presented to the board for action. Items 1 through 16. Motion.
So moved.
Second. Okay, having a motion and second. Mrs. Wood, would you do a roll call for us, please?
Mrs. Cassatt,
Yes.
Mr. Damascus,
Yes.
Mr. Hardwick,
Yes.
Mr. Camus,
Yes.
Mr. Keating,
Yes.
Mr. Majer,
Yes.
Mr. Profetto,
Yes.
Mr. Kaczynski,
Yes.
Mr. Usavich.
Yes. Finance recommended action. Move. Mr. Cardoni, do you have anything?
No, this is what we previously discussed.
Board members' comments, anybody? Sorry. Okay, would you,
So for finance action, you're gonna ask for a motion to accept and approve.
repeat that? Looking for a motion and a second to accept and approve the following as presented. Bills for payment,
So moved.
finance manager's reports and treasurer's report.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Wood?
Mrs. Cassatt,
Yes.
Mr. Damascus,
Yes.
Mr. Hardwick,
Yes.
Mr. Camus,
Yes.
Mr. Keating,
Yes.
Mr. Majer,
Yes.
Mr. Profetto,
Yes.
Mr. Kaczynski.
Yes.
Mr. Usavich.
Yes. Next scheduled meeting is, will be, the work session will be April 13th, 2022 at 7 PM. Regular April meeting following, immediately following. So I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.